الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم أجمعين. Okay, so inshallah we are going to begin with verse 21. So if all of you can open up your masahif to verse 21. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وإن من شيء إلا عندنا خزائنه وما ننزله إلا بقدر معلوم. Okay. So what I wanted to do is actually, like I had mentioned before, is to take a set of verses, inshallah, and do them together. And actually, we had done verse 21. So we're going to actually start with verse 22, and we're going to do verses 22 to 25 today. Hopefully, inshallah, we'll get through all of those. So I'm just going to give you the English translation of the section that I want to cover today, which is verses 22 to 25. So you know what context we're getting into, and then we'll take each verse by verse as we always do. So verse 22, وأرسلنا الرياح لواقح فأنزلنا من السماء ماء فأسقيناكموه وما أنتم له بخازنين. With that, can you correct me that oh, you know what? I believe we actually did not do verse 21. Okay. So, yeah. So let's actually go back to 21. I realized that we had not covered 21. And that was the verse that I had just recited. So let's do the word to word. So please, let's go back to verse 21. Wa and in. So here it means nothing. Min, from, shay, thing, illa, except, indana, with us, khazainuhu, its treasures or its stores, its reserves, wa and ma, not, nunaziluhu, we do not cause it to come down, illa, except, be, with, qadr, proportion or an amount, ma'loom, that is known. Okay. So subhanallah, we do not know the treasures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the word that's used here, illa indana khaza'inu, except with us are its treasures. Yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is saying that we don't send down anything, whatever rizq or water or sustenance. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying is that He does not send down anything except that with Him are its stores, its treasures, its the supplies are with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they are sent down according to a specific measure. Allah biqadr ma'lum. And I think we had mentioned this, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not regulate the amounts that are sent down, the amounts of various substances and various provisions, vegetation, if this was not regulated by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it would turn, instead of a blessing, it would turn into an absolute unmanageable commodity. So subhanallah, Allah is the owner of the treasures. And if you look at the word khaza'inuhu, khaza'in, referring to treasures or stores, it's from the word root word kha zainun, which means to store or amass, but it also means to protect it after gathering it, right? So Allah is al-Hafidh, right? He is the protector. And so He protects our rizq, not just stores it, but also then protects us from it being it coming down without any measure. He's also protecting us from that, where it would become unmanageable, would no longer be a blessing, but a difficulty, a trial. And He mentions actually that this is to bring home the fact that it is not vegetable life alone that has a fixed limit to its growth. I think we had mentioned this last week, but the same is true of everything that exists, whether it be air, water, heat, light, cold, minerals, vegetables, animals, everything that exists in this dunya, it exists in the prescribed quantity, in the prescribed number, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed, and it cannot decrease below that measure that Allah has willed, nor go beyond it. It is everything which has produced appropriate balance and proportion in the entire system of the universe to such a perfection that one is led to the inevitable conclusion that the whole universe has been designed by an all-wise creator. It's not a random assortment of things that come down in a way that is unmanageable or not sustaining of life. Rather, the opposite is true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just the creator, he's also then the mudabbir, right? The manager, the regulator of all that is coming down to us and everything in the universe. And Tafhim concludes this point by mentioning that for had the universe come into existence by mere accident, or had it been created by multiple gods, it was impossible to have such a perfect balance, such an appropriate proportion with perpetual, consistency in so many different things, subhanAllah. And this word, khaza'inuhu, you can see that I'm very drawn to this word, right? The stores of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the reserves of things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, right? It reminded me of that hadith al-Qudsi in Sahih Muslim, well, the meaning of which is, "O my servants were the first of you and the last of you, the human of you and the jinn of you, to rise up in one place and make a request of me, and were I to give everyone what he had requested, that would not decrease what I have any more than a needle decreases the sea if put into it." SubhanAllah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been feeding humankind from its inception. This planet has been sustained by him since it was created. And there is no depletion. As we had mentioned last time, that the earth produces multiple times more food than is needed to nourish the entire human population. So it's not because of a lack of resources, but a lack of a humane distribution of those resources that has resulted in poverty and world hunger, etc. As for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has created everything in the perfect measure, and He can, subhanAllah, rain down diamonds, if He so willed. And for those of you that are really interested in outer space, this happens, right? SubhanAllah, it's a fascinating fact regarding the atmospheric conditions on Uranus and Neptune, which are made up of, hydrogen, helium, methane. Those are the specific gases on those planets. And the high pressure and temperature within their atmosphere causes methane to break down, the particular gas called methane. It breaks down, which leads to the creation of carbon. And under these intense conditions, the carbon can crystallize into diamonds. So it is believed, based on this information or evidence that we have, that these planets actually experience diamond rain. SubhanAllah, look it up. It is fascinating. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with Him are the stores of everything, including, these types of jewels and precious minerals and metals that are so incredibly valuable to us. He has the stores of all of these and things that we do not know, we cannot fathom, subhanAllah. So when we ask, we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with confidence in our dua. We are not making dua to ourselves. We are making dua to the one who is the owner of the treasures of the heavens and the earth, right? Indana khaza'inuhu. With Allah are the treasures and the stores. So ask away with full confidence in what is with Him and not in what is with us, right? Okay, now the next portion is the portion that I actually wanted to do together. So I'm going to first read the English translation of verses 22 through 25, and then we'll take each verse at a time. So verse 22 to 25 is translated as follows. "We send fertilizing winds and bring down rain from the sky for you to drink. It is not you who hold its reserves. Surely it is we who give life and cause death, and we are the eternal successor. We certainly know those who have gone before you and those who will come after you. Surely your Lord alone will gather them together for judgment. He is truly all-wise, all-knowing." Okay, so this is what we're going to, inshallah, try to look at today. So let's go to the Arabic for verse 22. Wa and arsalna, we sent. Arsala, send, and or sent, and na is referring to we. So, and we sent, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring to Himself, of course. Ad-diyah, which is the plural of rih, which is wind. So ad-diyah are winds. Lawaqiha, and then this is the description for these winds. They are fertilizing or pollinating. so anzala, which is before the word is فأنزلنا, but you see the word anzala in there is to cause to descend or to come down. Noon, of course, is for the we. فأنزلنا, so we sent down. Min, from السماء, the sky. ماء, water. فأسقيناكموه, so أسقيناكموه, we caused you to drink thereby. Okay. Wa, and ma, not. Antum, you all. Lahu, for it. Be, with, but here it means bikhazinin, you were not the ones who store it, okay, or hold its stores or hold its reserves. We send fertilizing winds and bring down rain from the sky for you to drink. It is not you who hold its reserves, right? Subhanallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who holds the treasures, holds the reserves of the water and everything else. And here, particular attention is going to be paid in this verse to wind and to rain. Okay, this is what the verse mentions. And it's not just wind, but it is fertilizing wind. Lawaqih, lam, waw, alif, qaf, ha. Lawaqih, fertilizing winds or pollinating winds. And Shaykh Sadi mentions in the tafsir of this ayah, وَسَخَّرْنَا الرِّيَاحَ رِيَاءَ رَحْمَةٍ تَلْقَهُ السَّحَابِ, that we have subjugated the winds, the wind of mercy that pollinates the clouds. فَيَنْشَوْ عَنْ ذَلِكَ الْمَاء بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ, and from that is produced water by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَيَسْقِيهِ اللَّهُ الْعِبَادَ وَمَوَاشِيهِمْ وَأَرْضِهِمْ, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides drink through this process for his servants and for their animals and for their earth. ويبقى في الأرض مدخرا لحاجتهم وضروراتهم ما هو مقتضى قدرته ورحمته, right? And then this water remains preserved or stored in the earth for the needs of the human beings. And if you have ever, thought about a well, after you draw out the water, it's not that it becomes dry, but it's, subhanAllah, many wells continue to supply water. So there is a replenishment going on. Where is that coming from? It's coming from the water that, subhanAllah, Allah has stored for us in the earth. And if he did not store it, or if he made it dry, where could we get that water? But this is the power and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards his servants. He just did not create, but he created also a system of perpetual sustenance as long as this earth is in existence. وَمَا أَنْتُمْ لَهُ بِخَازِنِينَ, and you are not the ones that are holding its reserves. لَا قُدْرَ لَكُمْ عَلَى خَزَنِهِ وَادَّخَارِهِ, right? You have no power on storing it or reserving in any way. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَخْزِنُهُ لَكُمْ وَيَسْلِكُهُمْ يَنَابِيعَ فِي الْأَرْضِ رَحْمَةً بِكُمْ إِحْسَانًا إِلَيْكُمْ. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who stores it for you, and then subhanAllah provides different waterways in the earth as a mercy for you and perfecting his favor, ihsan towards you. And Ibn Kathir also mentions about this verse, which talks about winds that are fertilizing. Yani, they fertilize the clouds so that the clouds produce rain. And the winds also fertilize the trees so that their leaves open and blossom. So winds provide fertilization, or in the sense that when they interact with the clouds, they produce rain. And when the winds blow and upon the trees, this opens up their leaves and this whole process of pollination. So by fertilizing is in the sense that the winds prepare the conditions to for the rain to fall, subhanAllah. So essentially, لواقح, yani the winds that are fertilizing in the sense that they trigger the rain. It's really amazing, subhanAllah, how winds contribute to rainfall. Something we don't think about. We just check the weather channel and check how much it's going to rain and how much wind there's going to be. But I found a beautiful piece on this when I was looking at this verse about the role of wind. And I just want to share that because I thought it was very eloquently done. Wind plays a crucial role in both fertilizing the land and bringing down rain, serving as a powerful force that sustains life across the earth. As it sweeps across vast landscapes, the wind carries essential nutrients. We don't think about that. We just think, oh, it's a nice breezy day today. It's, the wind is blowing. We see it, with the movement of the trees. But we don't really think that a process is going on. The wind is carrying essential nutrients, dust rich in phosphorus and iron from deserts and other mineral rich regions, depositing them into distant ecosystems. Like, who else was going to arrange for the transport of those minerals that are required to cause a life and fruit and vegetation to burst forth? This airborne nourishment rejuvenates soil, feeds plant life, and fosters biodiversity in areas that are far away from the point of origin of those winds, subhanAllah. So, Allah has the rich minerals in one ecosystem, and then He has the system of transport through wind to get them into other ecosystems in order to foster that biodiversity, again, enriching our planet, enriching our experience of the planet, and providing that wide array of fruits and vegetables and flora, subhanAllah. So this is in terms of what the wind does, for the production of different plants, vegetables, etc. But also, like the verse mentions, the effect of the wind on causing rain. Wind also governs the movements of clouds. The whole delicate balance of the water cycle. The wind lifts the moisture from the oceans. I don't know if we think about these things, but in this reflective tafsir, this is what we want to do. We want to look at the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and try to understand what He's talking about. So the next time we have a windy day, we can ponder that, okay, it's the wind that is controlling the movement of the clouds. It's lifting the moisture from the various bodies of water, allowing it to condense into clouds that then drift across the sky. And when, the clouds get into cooler temperatures, then the moisture they carry condenses. And this is how we get life-giving rain, subhanAllah. Our rivers are replenished through this process. Our forests are sustained through this process. Our crops are nourished. And there's renewal of land. So subhanAllah, wind is plays a critical role in the rizq that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provides for us, in this endless cycle of sustenance that Allah has prepared, So here, the word for wind is in its plural, as Ibn Kathir points out. And he says the reason these winds are mentioned in the plural form, ad-riyah, not riyah, which is singular, but in plural, which is riyah, because they give results. They produce results. They are productive. They impregnate and produce, right? Unlike the barren wind, which is also mentioned in the Quran, that is mentioned in the singular. SubhanAllah, it's a very, a very attentive, detail here that Ibn Kathir is providing for us, that the barren wind is actually in the singular, arih al-aqim, right? Like in Surah Al-Dhariyat. But here it's in the plural because it's actually productive. It's actually bearing fruit and giving results, right? SubhanAllah. So wind is one of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is one of the forces of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It can be soft and soothing and refreshing. Like think of a really hot day and you had the experience of a soft, cool breeze. How good does that feel in the summer evenings, right? And that's one of the things we seek refuge in from the heat, through cool wind, through shade, right? But by Allah's permission, that same thing can become a source of destruction, a source of punishment, like we have learned from the various verses of punishment in the Quran, right? Like the way Aad were punished, it was through a wind. They were destroyed by a wind. وَأَمَّا عَادْ فَأُهْلِكُوا بِرِيحٍ صَرْصَرٍ عَاتِيَةٍ. And as for Aad, they were destroyed by a furious, bitter wind. And there we see that wind is in the singular. So here, alhamdulillah, in this verse, Allah is speaking of the great khair and benefit that He has placed in the wind for humankind. And then the verse also mentions rain, فَأَسْقَيْنَاكُمُوهُ, right? Which is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala causes us to drink. And He sends down this water which is fresh and sweet so we can drink it, right? If He had wished, He could have made it salty and drinkable. It would not have sustained us. And this is amazing if you think about the majority of the ocean water is not safe for drinking. It cannot be drunk, right? It's salty. It's not, you cannot consume it. But the rain that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends down, subhanAllah, He makes it fresh and sweet. And this is also mentioned in Ibn Kathir's tafsir. In the tafsir of this verse, he brings out another ayah in Surah Al-Waqi'ah where he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the verse in Al-Waqi'ah, verses 68 through 70, أَفَرَأَيْتُمُ الْمَاءَ الَّذِي تَشْرَبُونَ, have you seen the water that you drink? أَأَنْتُمْ أَنزَلْتُمُوهُ مِنَ الْمُزْنِ أَمْ نَحْنُ الْمُنزِلُونَ, is it you who causes it to come down from the rain clouds, or are we the cause of it coming down? لَوْ نَشَاءُ جَعَلْنَاهُ أُجَاجًا, if we willed, we could have made it salty, yani undrinkable. فَلَوْلَا تَشْكُرُونَ, then why do you not give thanks? So this is the purpose of going deeply into reflecting on these blessings of wind and rain so that we may become grateful. This is why the exercise of reflection and tadabbur is so powerful, because it gets you to a state of shukr, which is a state that few people are able to attain. وَقَلِيلٌ مِنْ عِبَادِيَ الشُّكُورِ, and very few of my servants are grateful. And we want to be very grateful. This way I want to pay attention to these verses and really, savor them and try to be people who are not heedless of Allah's signs when there is rain or when there is wind, etc. But to make that a reason to come closer to our Creator and to increase in gratitude. And many such verses are in the Quran. We've been through them, right? Like Surah Al-An'am, Surah Al-Nahl, وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً لَكُم مِّنْهُ شَرَابٌ وَمِنْهُ شَجَرٌ فِيهِ تُسِيمُونَ, He it is who sends down water from the sky, from it you drink, and from it grows the vegetation on which you send your cattle to pasture. And then this verse concludes with وَمَا أَنْتُمْ لَهُ بِخَازِنِينَ, it is not you who are the owners of its supply. We do not own the supply of anything, right? We don't own the supply of rain or water, nor are we taking care of it, right? Yani we're not the owners of it or the caretakers of it. Rather, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who sends these down in the proportion that is governed by His justice, and He takes care of it for us, right? He makes the springs and the wells flourish on the earth, as Ibn Kathir mentions. If Allah had so willed, He could make it disappear, right? And we could not have done anything, right? When there's a drought, what happens? People die, animals die, crops, wither away. And there is drought and, hunger and famine and starvation. SubhanAllah, what can we do? Absolutely nothing. We are completely at the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we see the signs of His mercy, it should increase the signs of gratitude within us as well. Okay, with that, let's go to verse 23. And inna, indeed we, la, surely, nahnu, we, nuhyi, we give life, wa, and numit, and we give death, wa, and nahnu, we, al-warithun, the inheritors or successors. Okay, so this is verse 23. Flowing translation, surely it is we who give life and cause death, and we are the eternal successor or the eternal inheritor of everything, right? And you notice when I was translating, there are multiple emphases of certainty, which we call ta'keed, right? Of emphasis, rather. So there's multiple emphases placed, which is ta'keed, right? Inna is made up of inna and we, right? So the indeed is there, which is to imply something with certainty or surety. La nahnu, lam is another article of ta'keed, emphasizing something. Nahnu, when it's used, the pronoun is used as an additional emphasis. So, subhanAllah, Allah is the one giving life. He is the one giving death, not just to human beings around us, but to the earth as well, that we witnessed, the death of the leaves in the winter time, and then they're being brought back to life, the same tree, subhanAllah. bursts into blossoms and vegetation. This is a proof of his power to give life to the dead. This is a great, obvious, clear sign, only if we don't get used to it, to prove to us how Allah will resurrect the dead on Yawm al-Qiyamah, right? I mean, someone, subhanAllah, who created from nothing, right? When we were nothing, we were not something that could even be mentioned because we had no existence. Like the way Surah Al-Insan begins, هَلْ أَتَى عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ حِينٌ مِنَ الدَّهْرِ لَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْئًا مَذْكُورًا. Has not a time come upon the human being when he was not a thing worthy of mention? Well, when we were nothing, and Allah created us from nothing, subhanAllah. And this is in the qudra of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't need something, He doesn't need a substance to make something else. He creates, can create, has created from Adam, yani from nothingness. All He has to say is kun fayakun, right? Be, and it is. And it's so arrogant to deny the resurrection, as we saw the Quraysh do. And this is recorded in Surah Yasin, verses 78 to 79. You all know these verses. وَضَرَبَ لَنَا مَثَلًا وَنَسِيَ خَلْقَهُ قَالَ مَنْ يُحْيِي الْعِظَامَ وَهِيَ رَمِيمٌ. And He puts forth for us a parable and forgets His own creation. He says, who will give life to these bones when they have rotted away and become dust? So again, it's a human tendency, a human fault, a human flaw to think we are the center of the universe and that things have to make sense according to our way of thinking and our logic. And the logic being employed here, this is an example of a person at the time of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam who was questioning the resurrection, questioning the claim of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam that they would be brought back to life. And so, blowing into the bone and how it just crumbles, and questioning that who will give life to these bones when they have rotted away and become dust. قُلْ يُحْيِيهَا الَّذِي أَنْشَأَهَا أَوَّلَ مَرَّةٍ وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ خَلْقٍ عَلِيمٌ. And if they would just use their minds one step further, they would realize what this verse is emphasizing. Say, O Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they will be revived by the one who produced them the first time, for He has perfect knowledge of every created being. Very, very obvious, right? The fact that you exist from nothingness is proof for the fact that you can exist once again from nothingness by the same Creator who brought you into life the first time. Very logical, if you think about it, right? And He is the ultimate inheritor. And that's what the verse actually concludes with, verse 23. وَنَحْنُ الْوَارِثُونَ, right? At the end, everyone dies. At the end, everything shall die. When the trumpet is blown, and everyone is caused to die, even the angel of death will be given death, right? And who is going to be eternally alive, always has been, always will be, is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the ultimate inheritor, the ultimate successor. So given that context, the context of this verse, and that how Allah is the inheritor, it means we don't really own anything in this world, right? And it is an intelligent person who comes to that conclusion. We're not really the owners of anything. Rather, we are the trustees of whatever it is that we have been given, an amana, to see how we utilize it, to see if we become lost in the blessing and then just enjoy it in this world, or if we can use it for the next while recognizing the bestower of it, right? So how we utilize the blessing for this world or the next, in remembrance of the bestower or in neglect. And Maududi rahimahullah ta'ala, he also mentions at this point, it is to impress here the fact that Allah is the successor, the inheritor. It's to emphasize that this worldly life, everything we possess, temporary. There's only one being that is eternal, and that is our Lord. Our end is going to come sooner or later, and we leave everything behind. We take nothing with us. Everything belongs to Allah, and including ourselves, right? This is what we say when we hear of that, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, right? That indeed we are for Allah. We belong to Allah, right? We don't even own our own selves, right? We are for Allah. We belong to Him. And it is to Him that we are returning. Okay. Let's try verse 24. Bismillah. وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْنَا الْمُسْتَقْدِمِينَ مِنْكُمْ وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْنَا الْمُسْتَأْخِرِينَ. And indeed, عَلِمْنَا, we have known, al-mustaqdimin, those who have gone before you, minkum, from you, walaqad, and surely, alimna, we have known, al-mustakhirin, those who will come after you. So literally, alimna, we have known, but it means we know, right? We certainly know those who have gone before you and those who will come after you, right? Ibn Kathir says how this refers to, we know, yani Allah knows the first generations of you who have passed away. In Ibn Abbas says that the first generations are all those who have passed away since the time of Adam alayhi salam. And the present generations are those who will come afterwards, refer to those who are alive now. So obviously the first generations, those who have passed away, al-mustaqdimin are the first generations, initial generations of those who have passed away since the time of Adam alayhi salam. So from his time until the present moment, meaning all the deceased up to the present moment. And then the present generation, those who will come afterwards, refer to those who are alive now and who are yet to come until Yawm al-Qiyamah. So basically all of mankind, right? That's a simple way to put it. As all of humankind are known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is really mind-boggling, because it just didn't, specify human beings or people, right? It just says those who have gone before and those who will come after, right? So this may include the jinn, subhanallah, right? It is mind-boggling to consider how many people Allah knows, subhanallah, And currently we have, 8 billion people with the B, right, alive on earth right now. It's a staggering number. You can't really wrap your head around it, right? That's only the current global population. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows them all and all of their thoughts at the same time, which is just, subhanallah, mind-boggling. But then these are not the only ones He knows. He knows everyone that has come before us since the time of Adam alayhi salam, and everyone who will come after us until Yawm al-Qiyamah. He knows every single one intimately, thoroughly, fully. He knows every moment of their lives, subhanallah. As for those who have not yet come into this world, He already knows how every single moment of their lives will be spent. And then He knows the same about the jinn and the same about all other creation of the birds and the animals and insects, subhanallah. So with a verse like this, I get very curious about how many people have lived on earth. And it's a question that is hard to answer, but demographers have actually tried to estimate the total number of people that ever lived, and they have estimated that about 117 billion people have lived on earth. Now, of course, this is just a very rough estimate. It has there are a lot of flaws in the ways that they were able to arrive at this number. Obviously, there have to be some assumptions, and subhanallah, what that means is current population of the world today is only 7% of that total estimated number, which which cannot be accurate, right? And again, does not include the jinn and the calculations based on various assumptions, which are inevitably flawed, and within the constraints of recorded time. So it's not an accurate number. And it doesn't include the numbers that are yet to be born, right? It doesn't include the numbers that are yet to populate Earth, subhanallah. And Allah knows them all. Mind-boggling. Allah's knowledge is mind-boggling. And this is what He's telling us in this verse, that we know everyone, right? Those that have gone before and those who are yet to come. The verse in Surah Ibrahim, verse 9, ألم يأتكم نبأ الذين من قبلكم قوم نوح وعاد وثمود والذين من بعدهم لا يعلمهم إلا الله. Have you not already received the stories of those who were before you, the people of Noah, Ad, Thamud, and those after them? Only Allah knows how many they were. Subhanallah. So, we know the stories of only the nations Allah has told us about in the Quran, right? We really don't know um, how many people actually existed and were destroyed, how many received messengers and then rejected them. We know the story of Nuh and Ad and Thamud alayhi salam, right? Or to the prophets, Nuh and Saleh and Hud alayhi salam that were sent to these people. But there were others after them, right? We don't have access to those records, right? Only Allah knows how many they were. And we can never know them because Allah is telling us that in this verse in Surah Ibrahim. La ya'lamuhum illallah. No one except Allah knows them, right? So no matter how much archaeology or anthropology you get into, we will remain ignorant of that knowledge that only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all knowing and alim about. So that's the truth of the matter. La ya'lamuhum illallah. No one knows them except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, and let's do the last verse for today. So we'll actually be finishing a bit early today. Inshallah, we'll have one more verse. Verse number 25. وَإِنَّ رَبَّكَ هُوَ يَحْشُرُهُمْ إِنَّهُ حَكِيمٌ عَلِيمٌ. And inna, indeed, رَبَّكَ, your Lord, huwa, he, يَحْشُرُهُمْ, shall gather them. إِنَّهُ, indeed, he, Hakim, all wise, Alim, all knowing. Okay. Surely your Lord alone will gather them together for judgment. He is truly all wise, all knowing. SubhanAllah. Allah will gather human beings from this earth because they're not deposited anywhere else, right? Except, of course, the astronauts that, died in outer space. But other than that, the majority of human beings, since the time of Adam alayhi salam, they're buried in the earth, right? Including the sons of Adam alayhi salam and everyone, right? They're buried in this earth. And Allah knows where all of their remnants are. Allah knows every single particle of every human being that is scattered around this world. And if you think about it, it's very, very humbling to think that, soon after you're buried, not much long after that, and I actually did not look into that. It would be intriguing to research this angle. After how long do you completely just disintegrate into bones? And then, what remains of you and how much of you becomes part of the soil that you're buried in? And then there is grave turnover. And, that soil is used perhaps in other spaces and places, and our particles become, scattered perhaps. And Wallahu alam, it's a very humbling reality, right? So the biggest mistake to make is to think that we are something, to think that, to have, to think of oneself as, to entertain our egos and think we are something, right? That is a big mistake. And to get ourselves out of that, all we have to think about is to contemplate what becomes of us shortly after our burial, right? And Allah will gather together for judgment all these particles of all these human beings that we do not know their number and we do not know these nations, right? And He is Al-Hakim, right? He is Alim, Hakimun Alim, right? And this reminded me of the narration from Sahih Muslim and Bukhari, rahimahullah ta'ala. And I'm just going to read the portion that I think was related to this, how a man sinned greatly against himself. And when death came to him, he charged his sons, saying, and he made his sons responsible for the following. He said, when I have died, burn me, then crush me and scatter my ashes into the sea. For by Allah, if my Lord takes possession of me, He will punish me in a manner in which He has punished no one else. So they did that, So we can imagine perhaps it was a process of cremation or I mean, that's what it's saying, right? He told them to burn him. So they did that to him. Then yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the earth, produce what you have taken, right? Subhanallah. And there he was. That's all Allah has to say, right? Produce what you have taken. And there he was, that man was composed together in his form. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to him, and he said to him, what induced you to do what you did? Yani, what made you command your sons to burn you and crush you and scatter you into the sea, right? And he said, being afraid of you, O my Lord, or being frightened of you. And because of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave him. The point of the narration in this context being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all capable over this hashr, right? Of this gathering, of this bringing together. Subhanallah. And he is all wise, right? He mentions that his wisdom demands that he should gather entire mankind. That is part of Allah's wisdom. Because the story is not over. If someone lives a life of oppression and genocide and ethnic cleansing, like our brothers and sisters in Gaza and Sudan and all various places where people are suffering, and they are just killed and destroyed unjustly and through the worst forms of persecution and human suffering of undue proportions are inflicted on them, and they die and they're killed. The story is not over. The story is not over. Allah's hikmah, Allah's wisdom, and Allah's justice is that He would gather entire humankind for that day where there shall be reward and punishment. The reward and the punishment is part of Allah's wisdom and it is part of His justice, right? For each individual, then they are recompensed according to their deeds. So actually, we had talked about this in a previous tafsir, how there's so many proofs for resurrection, even within the injustice people suffer, right? And He is also Alim, all-knowing. Yani no individual, whosoever she may be, can escape from Him, right? So this combination of Allah's sifat, Allah's names of Hakim and Alim being placed here in this verse in the context of Hashr, being the gathering on Yawm al-Qiyamah, subhanallah, they go perfectly with the maqasid, with the purpose of that gathering, right? He is all wise in gathering them because there must be reward and punishment, because the story does not end with planet Earth and the death of those human beings, right? And He is all knowing, and so no individual, no oppressor, no tyrant, no matter how powerful he was in this world, can get away with it. No one can escape Him. As such, each and every particle of each and every individual is in His knowledge. He is able to bring all of mankind to life on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And that will happen in a way that is only known to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will be in a form that will be able to withstand the intensity of that day. Because if we were to be brought forth in a normal human constitution that we have been given on earth, we would physically not be able to bear the day of judgment. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for ease. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for coolness and for shade and for the light of our good deeds on Yawm al-Qiyamah, so that it is a cool breeze. It is like, a pleasant moment of peace and security and safety, inshallah. So to conclude, that He mentions for this verse number 25, thus anyone who denies life in the hereafter is really ignorant of the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And anyone who considers it impossible that those particles of the human body, which were all scattered about, could again be brought together in the form of the body that was alive, is ignorant of the all-comprehensive knowledge and power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you cannot deny Yawm al-Qiyamah except by denying Allah's wisdom. Because remember, in the Quran, Allah says many times that He has not created the heavens and the earth except in truth, right? Yani for a purpose. And part of that purpose, we will see, will be in the Hashr, on the Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the gathering, on the taking into account and then rewarding and punishing. And then, of course, He's all powerful, all wise, all knowing of where everyone is or all their particles are, and He will bring them together with His knowledge, with His power, and with His wisdom shall judge between them in full justice on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And inshallah, with this, we're going to conclude today a little bit early. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.